Why in the world would I ever get into liquid products?
There is more money than you would ever imagine in liquid products, period. Nothing has come close to the profit I personally have made on aerosols. You know, it can be wildly profitable, and that's a good start for any business. Difficult destinations, you know, end up as some of the most beautiful places because there's less competition there for a start. You know, it's like if you wanted to sell the FBA heavy and large program, you know, some people are just scared by anything over 30 kilos. So the fact that you have to jump up through a few hoops to get into it for a start means you're in a better place. If you just look at the numbers, right? I mean, if you think about personal care products, household products, automotive products, there's vast amounts of cash being made on those things.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit more restricted categories when it comes to selling on Amazon, specifically in liquid products. Now, my guest is very much an expert on this particular topic and niche when it comes to selling on Amazon. We're actually going to define what liquid products are because they are maybe not exactly what you think. There's all these interesting definitions. But first off, I really want to thank Roger Percy, co-founder of Ecoformex, for joining me. Welcome, Roger.
Yes, hi Elizabeth. Great to be here. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much. So we connected, I believe it was on LinkedIn. You're putting a lot of really good, informative posts out on LinkedIn. That's where I get connected with a lot of really interesting people. But before we really dive into this topic, I would love for you to give maybe like a 10-second overview of yourself, you know, kind of how you got into this space.
Yeah, cool. I'm Roger Percy. This very much is an English accent. I live in Northern Ireland in the countryside. In terms of a brief intro, I've sold on Amazon since forever. You know, I was in e-commerce way back. My first site built in '99, but I'm from a science background. There's a couple of little brain cells in here that sometimes talk to each other, you know, so that's come in really, really handy because having sold zillions of products in America, the UK, EU for such a long time, mainly liquid products and aerosols, that's led me to this point to being the co-founder of Ecoformex.
Very cool. Do you mind expanding a little bit, like briefly on Ecoformex and what it is that you all do?
Yeah, sure. I think we've all seen, you know, those Helium 10 videos of how you could make loads of money selling garlic presses directly from Alibaba or whatever, right? But that's what everybody does, right? That's the easy thing to do. I've never really been one for making life easy for myself because, you know, I've worked with restricted products, things that are just hard to ship, whether they be flammable or whatever, for such a long time. Now, if Amazon sellers want to get involved in something that is a little bit harder to do, you know, where there's less competition, but the gains are massive, then liquid products are very much like that. When I say liquid products, I'm talking about aerosols, you know, pump sprays, creams, gels, pots, tubes, of which there are vast amounts of sales done all the time on Amazon. So all those pitfalls and those roadblocks and those headaches that people get when they're trying to bring a product like that to market, Ecoformex is there to just resolve with one done-for-you service, taking away all the headaches and saving money.
Yeah, and that's really cool. So these are things that you work with all the time, hence, you know, me kind of wanting you to come on and share your knowledge with this, because with a lot of these more restrictive categories or more difficult categories to get into, oftentimes sellers, it's like, it feels like a black box. They're starting from square one and they often, or you'll research the products, you'll see the immense potential in a specific space, and then you'll not really fully know even how to get into it. So that's why a lot of beginning sellers just completely shy away from it. And that's something we'll get to later on in our conversation, I'm sure. But there is something to be said for going into categories that the majority of sellers find difficult or intimidating, because it actually kind of creates a moat around that particular product that you're launching. Because if someone can't quite comprehend how to figure out how to bring that product to market and you're willing to kind of go through that, then, you know, that kind of difficulty, it stops like a whole bunch of flood of other people launching the same products. Yeah, I think it's like really helpful. And you kind of touched on this when you were explaining Ecoformex and what you all do, but there's all these like classifications on Amazon. So it seems like they'll refer to a product in some way, which might not be like the typical vernacular that you would just use in day to day. So like, what does Amazon classify as a liquid product?
That's a good question. I think that really only Amazon, they would only really be worried about three things. How it's packaged for a start, whether it's a glass or a plastic bottle perhaps. A big one, of course, especially with FBA, is it safe for them to store and ship? Is a product just easy, or is it like a hazmat product? And of course, if it has a shelf life, because liquids would include certain types of food, wouldn't it? Creams and so on.
So you were saying it has a lot to do with, obviously tepid liquid, like we would think of, some sort of form. But you were saying it also includes like creams and aerosols and all like, and I assume that's because it falls into one of these categories of, is it cheap to ship? It has a particular shelf life, or it's packaged in some certain way.
Yeah, Amazon will always push it back on the seller, won't they? It's not for them. It's for sellers to sort of prove all this, because you take a solid and a liquid, but there's lots of differences in between. When you get to pastes and chews and stuff that aren't necessarily completely solid or completely liquid, so they'll always push it back to the seller for sellers to prove or work with the right regulations and certifications for that.
So on that note, I think one of the major barriers to entry, it seems, with this kind of category or types of products is definitely the regulations that Amazon has around that. So do you mind giving like a brief overview of maybe, I know there's a lot involved here, but like a brief overview of maybe the types of regulations or things that you should be aware of when you're trying to sell in this category?
Yeah, the regulations are outside of Amazon mainly, so that instantly makes you think about the local laws. So I think as an Englishman, I know California likes to do things very different to the rest of the US, where each and every state might have its own version of what's cool and what's not cool, or what's approved and what isn't. And that, again, if you're looking to launch in a different marketplace, knowing the regulations, what is like FDA regs don't apply in the EU, do they? So it's understanding how the government regs work in that case.
Does Amazon have any of their own specific stipulations, or do they tend to have stipulations because governmental local bodies have created stipulations?
As a rule, they'll generally always go with the local government ones. Of course, the only ways that they will be sort of keen to force their own regulations is if they're handling the product. There are certain variations on that maybe a call for a different conversation, but in general, they work with the local, the government laws of the country that the marketplace is in.
Got it. That's so super interesting. So along with that,
I was just going to give you an example of one, sorry, if you want.
Yeah.
A great one is pepper spray. Pepper spray is a complicated product, right? Because you've got so many different things affecting it. First of all, it's an aerosol, so it's a pressurized tin, which may probably mean it's then flammable, so it's hazmat. Then you've got the different laws around different countries and different states, whether it's legal to do that or not. So you've typically got 3 tiers for that. A, where like in Germany and certain parts of the US, where pepper spray is completely cool. Rock on, sell pepper spray all you like. Then you've got countries in the middle, like the UK, where you're allowed a spray that might stain your skin, but as long as it doesn't contain an irritant, that's fine. But then you look at countries like Spain, where you just forget it. You can't sell anything like that, and expect Amazon to not want to suspend your listing at some point.
That's super interesting. So it sounds like you almost have to figure out your exact product and then go start researching sort of the regulations around that specific product. You wouldn't want to go, let me research all of liquid products, because that, how would you even quantify or try and figure that out? So it sounds like you would want to kind of narrow it down and then look at local regulations and then allow those to kind of shape what you can or can't do with the product. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely, because otherwise you'd spend forever researching and you never get anything done. I mean, that's not the way to do product research, is it?
Definitely not. Time is of the essence when you're trying to bring things to market. That's for sure. So along with, looking at local regulations, oftentimes this comes with certifications. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Is that something else that, again, is researched by the local body? But when it comes to like being able to get past these regulations and prove these things, what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, regulations and certifications are 2 very different things. Certifications, you can kind of bundle them all together, right? Because there's still things you need to overcome in order to get that product launched. But there are sort of the more legal certifications, but equally there are marketing certifications that you can use to your advantage, which is a different type of certification, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And again, I assume you would typically come across what kind of certifications when doing the research portion, or is there a good place to go and kind of find those?
It's a tricky question. I think the best way to see certifications, you've got some certifications that are like regulations. We won't get bogged down with that because that's just tedious. But from an entrepreneurial sales point of view or marketing point of view, certifications lend themselves very much to marketing claims. Right, so take the climate pledge friendly badge that you can get, right at the top underneath your title next to your brand. You know, that's a certification that you want, right? You've got to do everything. If you can appeal to green buyers, for example, then why the heck wouldn't you do that? Because you're opening what might be an existing product to a much bigger audience, and we all know what that can do.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of seeing like where, I assume you would come across those things through almost like market consumer research, maybe not necessarily the regulations, just who's buying this product, what are they looking for, how can I appeal to them?
Yeah, and this again, there's no straight line here. It's not a case of going from A to B and figuring it out. I think that this is what researchers and scientists do, right? They look for opportunities and for niches. But the difference is, though, it depends on the type of business, the Amazon business that you're running, and depends what your team looks like. You know, if you're just kind of a 1 or 2 man or person team, you know, with a couple of VAs or whatever, you're not going to be qualified in the nicest sense to understand what scientific inclusions you can have into your product, or how you might make it greener, or how you might appeal to somebody that doesn't want allergens in the product that makes the children sick or whatever. So usually it makes sense to work with a third party to help to develop the product, and just to see, not necessarily to develop, just to see what's possible first of all. Because, you know, I think we all know, if you've worked in e-commerce for long enough, you'll know that Me Too products can be hiding. You know, you can just spend tons of money. A lot of your audience are advertising people. You know, your ACOS can go through the roof. You know, you can spend money on ads left, right and centre. If your product's the same as everybody else's, you might do some nice graphic design or some clever ads, but at the end of the day, from my point of view, having always been a product person my whole life, if your product's just better, you know, if you've got better features, you know, if you've read your customers' reviews, or even better, your competitors' product reviews, and you can see, you know, everybody's saying, can you do one that looks like this? Well, find out, you know, if that's the case, it can be the best research you ever do. Because if you end up then with a surefire winner of a stormer of a product that answers everybody's questions, A, you can charge what you want for it, you're not worried about tiny margins. B, be great for conversion, yada yada yada, right? Ads cost less. So, you know, there's so many different reasons why you should spend a bit of time trying to make a better product. Simple.
Definitely. So we talked about, you know, the difficulties and the regulations and all the things you need to be aware of and all of this research. And so there's probably people listening going like, why in the world would I ever get into liquid products? You're telling me it's a great opportunity, but I just see all of these barriers. Can you kind of speak to some of the advantages that come with us selling liquid products?
It's really easy. The first one, we're all in business to make money. The biggest advantage of liquid products is there is more money than you would ever imagine in liquid products, period. You know, in my career, and I'm a kind of an old dude, you know, nothing has come close to the profit I personally made on aerosols. You know, it can be wildly profitable, and that's a good start for any business. Because a lot of these things, like the cosmetics category or, you know, hazmat, they can be like a shield and a sword. What I mean by that is, you know, difficult destinations, you know, end up as some of the most beautiful places because there's less competition there for a start. You know, it's like if you wanted to sell the FBA heavy and large program, you know, some people are just scared by anything over 30 kilos. So the fact that you have to jump up through a few hoops to get into it for a start means you're in a better place. If you just look at the numbers, right? I mean, if you think about personal care products, household products, automotive products, there's vast amounts of cash being made on those things. So another interesting one is globally, there are 18 billion, not billion, but there are 18 billion, that was emphasis, there are 18 billion aerosols produced every year. You know, now from my personal experience in British pounds, you know, my bestseller was cost me back in the day 67 pence. I don't know how much that is cents these days, and I was selling those things for fun at like, you know, 10 to 15 pounds each. So somebody told me a long time ago to always go with a 7x multiplier. And if you know Stephen Selikoff, I'll do a bit of a name drop here. He does his wonderful product development academy over there in the States, and he talks about the 7x multiplier as well. You're in business to make money, that's it, period. You've got to make the cash. So, you know, if you can innovate and make something a bit different to everybody else's and still look at those kind of margins, then you're definitely on the right track.
Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like the cost of entry seems more time and effort to navigate than it is money. But then on the back end, once you have all of those things in place, once you're able to sell, product development, I assume initial development for the product, if you're bringing something new to market, there would be that. But then as far as the cost of manufacturing, you're saying the numbers work very, very well.
Without a doubt. And as a side to that, Elizabeth, you know, you've only got to look at the likes of TikTok and Pinterest and, you know, anywhere where people can drive traffic to Amazon. We all know Amazon loves external traffic, right? So you can increase your ranking and reduce ACOS and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, those platforms, those social media channels are full of liquid products, aren't they? You know, whether it be self-tan or whatever, right? So there's a lot of money to be made here.
Yeah, definitely. So you've been talking a little bit, and I know this is another one of those questions that the answers are vast and varied, but you're talking about bringing things new to the market and giving sellers, other options where you can come into a space and be the more premium option with the development. With that being said, what kind of innovations are possible with liquid products?
Okay, that is a great question, and I'll try to keep that as brief as I can, but we all are very guilty of studying the products in our bathrooms and our kitchens and in our houses, right, in explicit detail for lots of different reasons, for health reasons, for sustainability reasons, for, eco-friendly reasons, right? So you're in a buyer's market here, so any kind of, opportunity that you look at, there's always positives to it. I mean, there's no bigger one, is there, let's face it, than the eco-friendly one, because only this week, this is the beginning of August, but last week here in Europe, Sicily was on fire, 46 degrees, and we're all aware of it. Now, yes, let's be realistic, Amazon sellers are there to make money, but you don't have to pay more for many green products anymore. It used to be the case not so long ago that somebody would come at you with a greener option and it'd be just more expensive, which means that you'd be losing margin and you'd be sort of in a painful place. But like take aerosols, for example. Okay, the thing with aerosols, I'm going to use a visual demonstration here, but yeah, we've seen this. There's a typical aerosol, right? We know they're flammable. They can end up looking like that very quickly. But from an eco-friendly point of view, it's now possible to replace the nasty VOCs, the fossil fuels that you see in aerosols, and replace them with fresh air, as in like fresh air. So, and what green buyer isn't going to want that, right? So, because these things they can be quite bad. Well, they are major pollutants. I'll hit you with an interesting statistic or fact that there's more global warming, more air pollution caused by just aerosols than automobiles now. So cars are less polluting than aerosols. So, the big players out there that make all the, the major deodorants and the main things are still using butane. One great innovation that you can do is to make a greener aerosol that doesn't cost you more. Yeah. How's that for a good one?
Yeah, no, that's a definite good one, especially when you're saying it doesn't have to be more expensive. Because I think, again, margins, like you're saying, it is a factor when it comes to product development, and it has to be, because everyone wants to be able to be helpful and help the environment and do all these good things, but if that's at the cost of, profits, if you just have to keep going into the negative, well then, that's not sustainable either. So you're saying that there can be the best of both worlds here, and there are options if you are good to explore them.
Don't get me wrong, I mean, I'll put a little addition to that if you want. I mean, there are so many different features that you can do. I mean, I'm just looking at a little list on my screen here, for example. So, things like microplastic free, synthetic thickeners, people don't like that. If something can be certified organic or biodegradable, then you've got, made with renewable energy. That's a thing for carbon, for net zero. Vegan, vegetarian, plant-based, natural fragrance, allergen free, which is a big one if you're a parent. I know you are, and like myself, and there's so many different allergens in fragrances that just make your kids sick.
Yeah.
That you just don't need in your house. Then you've got parabens and sulfates and phosphates. Elizabeth, these things all sound fancy, but they're a big point of difference on your product. Now, from an advertising point of view, I did a study on this. I actually put it in the newsletter, which is, we do a weekly newsletter. It's free for Amazon sellers on how to monetize liquid and aerosol products. Now, we did a case study on shower gels, just only because we chose shower gels, right? Because we were just formulating some that week, and we thought, well, we're working with shower gels, let's just pick shower gels. And we discovered that out of all the different ways that people market shower gels, very few sellers are even putting all the features on the product listing. It was quite remarkable. So let me break that down. So when people were searching for shower gels, they were searching for shower gels, body wash, the alternatives for male or female. Okay, then there was a big drop to people then putting brands in the search, like brand names, right? And even lower down after that, I think things like dermatologically tested was really way down. So from a PPC perspective, all these things that people want, like organic and so on, they just serve for conversion, if that makes sense. They're the things that when you go, oh look, it's kind to the bees or whatever. Yeah, I'll put that in my cart. But it's a big thing for me, because people focus too much, not too much, but you need your graphic design on your main image and everything to look good, right? That helps conversion. Got to keyword stuff you're listing, your description behind your A+ and everything else. But people do forget to include the stuff that humans want on the product. We did a study and people were missing off their ASIN stuff like microplastics free and stuff like that, which I know that they help conversion. So people shouldn't forget the science bits.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, if you've gone out of your way to develop a product that has a unique selling point, it's true. Like, you should make that surface to the shoppers, because until they purchase the product and to hopefully see it prominently displayed on your packaging, they're not even going to know that that's a feature. So why would you not highlight that to shoppers? I mean, to me, it makes total sense.
I agree completely.
Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm so glad we ended on this great point of it is definitely worth it to get into selling liquid products, because like you said, there's a lot of things that work very well if you're able to get past the barriers. So I appreciate you highlighting the barriers and making them a little bit less ambiguous to our listeners. So my last question in this segment is always, okay, so we talked about a lot of stuff, right? Like regulations and things and development. But if a seller was listening to this and say, okay, that sounds great, that sounds interesting, I would love to do some more research and potentially launch a liquid product, what would be the first step you recommend them taking?
Okay, the first step is don't make the mistakes I made for 10 plus years by Googling the life out of factories and people like that, because, you know, factories, if you find a factory, they'll only tell you what they can produce. Do you see what I mean? So, and a lot of the time they would want to steal your IP and keep the formulation. So what you have with Ecoformics, guys, is an independent starting point, right? Of basically a science team that you could have on your team just help you with a bit of research. There's no stupid questions with us, right? If you don't know, you don't know. So there's no harm in asking. We do kind of a 3-tier set of inquiries. So we do, first of all, is a completely free one. You know, you get in touch with us, it's a free and confidential analysis where our science team just helps you find, you know, whether they be greener, you know, or better products. So the free one is the, let's imagine you've got your current product in its current format. Let's say you wanted to sell it in a different marketplace. You know, like you had a hand cream and you wanted to sell it, you're selling a hand cream in the States and you're thinking, will this hand cream sell in the EU? I mean, what about all these chemicals? Are they cool or not? We don't know, right? So that's a free one. We'll do that completely for nothing. We'll also let you know if any modifications to the product are necessary in order to do that. The second one is, there's a small fee for it, but it's where we just do a competitive landscape report from a scientific point of view. So in other words, if you know, things might look tricky on, you know, in terms of competing for the same keywords, but if there's an opportunity to sell a better product, if that makes sense, if extra science can be included to help your product to convert. And we can go a little bit deeper. We can even do like a full-on innovation study where, and this is like R&D in itself, where we have, you know, we have every research paper, access to science documentation. If you've got either a product idea or something that you want to know if, say for example, if a concentrated version is possible or if some kind of greener alternative is available, then we'll get that for you with a view for that being your product, meaning your IP and your formulation. So then what you can do, I mean, either we would quote you and say, right, you know, we can do MOQ this and so many pieces and blah, blah, blah. There's option one. But wouldn't it be nice if that great idea that you've got, a production of your research, if you can just own that? Elizabeth, I spent ages, so many years just working with factories in China, in Europe and wherever. And when they own the IP, prices can go up, right? Delays can happen and you're completely powerless. So that would be a nutshell in Ecoformics. Just talk to us and we'll let you know.
Well, definitely. So if somebody wanted to talk to you, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Ecoformics.com. There's a free discovery call, 30 minutes on there, or social media, LinkedIn, you name it.
Definitely. So we'll make sure that all those links are below. So if you want to get in touch with Roger and speak to him about maybe development of a liquid product, definitely do that. And Roger, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been a riveting conversation.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.